Empoleon is just a cool Pokemon. I don't have a ton of Pokemon cards, but Empoleon is one of the cards that I do have in this nice Empoleon X, and Piplup was an easy choice for me when I played Diamond and Pearl as a kid. But in Pokemon Go, it has been meta relevant. When they buffed Steel Wing, it was great, but if you look at the top Pokemon in the Ultra League right now, you have to scroll down for quite a while before you find Shadow Empoleon, which is rank 150, which is not good at all, and then you have to keep scrolling and scrolling to find regular Empoleon at 203, which is terrible. If it's so terrible, why would I recommend it? And it just comes down to the fact that one PV Poke is recommending the wrong moveset. It should be recommending Waterfall, but it's recommending Metal Claw. And if you look at the different scenarios, 0 to 32 shields, in the 0 shield, you pick up a number of fire matchups, you have better battle rating than Metal Claw. If you look at the 1 shield, you pick up a bunch of matchups, and that's typically where you're going to be with Empoleon as a lead. And then in the 2 shield, you still have a higher battle rating, and you pick up important fire matchups. So across the board, you should be running Waterfall in the Ultra League, yet for some reason, PV Poke wants you to run Metal Claw. Pokemon Go is not a one-on-one. Skarmory and Whiscash were 2 Pokemon that dominated the meta together for some time until they had to be nerfed because Skarmory covers all of Whiscash's weaknesses and Whiscash covers all of Skarmory's weaknesses. And together, they're much better than individually. So for this team, I'm running an ABB style. I have Empoleon on the lead, and then I have 2 dragons in the back. This is a team that was seen a lot back when Empoleon was meta in the Great League. And I like this team because all of my Pokemon have fast move pressure, but they all have charge moves that you can't just let add up over time. And they get to those charge moves on realistic timescales. There aren't any true nuke moves in my team. And so the true dragons I'm using are Giratina and Goodra. Both have reasonable bulk in the Ultra League. Obviously, Giratina is extremely bulky, and then Goodra has bulk, but also puts out a bit more damage than Giratina, which makes it a better save swap. And so typically what I do, if Empoleon isn't just a huge overwhelming lead, I swap in Goodra to try and bait out any potential fairies, ice types, or anything that would cause problems for Giratina. And Goodra usually has play because you can just add up these Aqua Tails or Thunder Punches, and even if it doesn't, Empoleon will completely clean up, and then you're doing pretty well in the back because Giratina just dominates anything as a closer because it just overwhelms them with its incredible stat product. And it makes this team hard to deal with despite the fact that individually Empoleon and Goodra aren't necessarily top meta, specifically Empoleon. And so I actually went on a 13 win streak with this team as soon as I started using it, which is my longest win streak of the season. Obviously, I'm not playing, top legend players every game like I would at the end of the season, but at this current moment, I think this team catches a lot of people by surprise because they're not expecting Empoleon, and Giratina, without a hard check, is just impossible to deal with. And so that's typically what ends up being the case. Now, the biggest problem Pokemon for this team is Primeape, because it can take out your Empoleon, and if it's still lingering around, especially if it's boosted, it can throw these huge Rage Fists into Giratina, and that just, causes huge problems because it does more than half the health if it's already boosted. But let me know what you guys think. Try it out. Empoleon Double Dragon is in pretty good shape, and I think one of the biggest reasons why it's so strong is because everyone's running Skeledirge. After the community day, I think everybody now has a very accessible, very strong Ultra League mon, and because of that, you see a ton of Incinerate, which this team is very strong into. Given the rise in ghosts in the Ultra League meta, I also think that this has decentivized people from using fighters like, for example, Annihilape, and also things like Primeape are a little bit less common. And so I think this helps out this team quite significantly because fighters are one of the main things that can cause problems for Giratina and Empoleon specifically. Giratina, if they have coverage and get to that coverage very quickly. For example, something like Pangoro, Primeape, those can be a little bit challenging because they get to the Rage Fist and Night Slash so quickly that it really threatens your whole team. And so, given the recent meta shift, I think a lot of people are using Shadow Dust Noir, which obviously you don't want that aligned on your Giratina, but you have a lot of play nevertheless. So in this match, I'll start talking about the battles now. You can see that I get aligned on a Charm Primarina. This would be a horrible matchup for either of my backline, because this is a Charmer, and so I'm very happy to see this with Empoleon. Now, do I think something like Steel Wing or Metal Claw would probably be better? Yes. However, you know, unless they have a second Charmer, I'm probably going to do quite well against their team. As you can see, I'm really tapping Goodra because I just want to swap out into something else. It's actually a Machamp, which I would want aligned on my Giratina, but luckily they swap out into Venusaur. It's just not very good against either of my backline because, you know, it can only really use Sludge Bomb to do any damage against Goodra, which you can see here that it's using Frenzy Plant because it just wants to get off quick chip, and Frenzy Plant is a more energy efficient move. But my back Pokemon Giratina completely destroys both Venusaur and Machamp, so at this point I know that I've won. I don't really care if they Sludge Bomb me. It is what it is. So for this next matchup, Levany is on the lead, which is not something I see very frequently. The reason I immediately go Goodra is because 1, my waterfalls would be resisted, and 2, you always, if you don't have a very dominant matchup that your dragons are trying to avoid, you really want to swap out into your Goodra to try and bait out any potential answer. I was counting on this, and so I know that this Hydro Cannon is not an Ice Beam, and that allows me to just, you know, completely farm it down after I let it go. Then they go into Levany. I don't really have any moves. I honestly think that Draco Meteor might actually be a better move on this Goodra, but I don't want to get rid of the Thunder Punch Community Day move, so I'm a little hesitant to get rid of the move on Goodra. I'll have to build another with Draco Meteor, which I honestly think I did, but, you know, I forget why I didn't use it. So you can see in the back they have a Primeape. That is not good because it beats both Giratina and my Empoleon, but given the current game state, I think I do have a win condition. That's why I swap immediately into my Empoleon. Basically, I'm not afraid of a close combat because if they close combat, that means that I can just start farming them all the way down with Giratina and they're double debuffed. So I just let it go. I know that I can farm all the way down now because they don't have enough energy to get to double Rage Fist, and that's exactly what I'm going to do here. And then Levany in the back, it doesn't have any move that does any damage to Giratina besides its fast move, actually. And even though Leaf Blade is a scary move, I know that I have enough health to take it. This next game, we see Malamar, which is a little bit of a tough lead. Here, I throw 3 waterfalls to try and get some energy on my Empoleon, and then I just swap Goodra to try and see if they have some fairy in the back. They end up having a Drapion, which, you know, I am glad that I don't have to see this on Giratina because those super effective crunches would really take it out, but Empoleon would, you know, do kind of well into Drapion at even energy, so it is what it is. I'm assuming I'm going to swap back into Empoleon because I don't really take any fast move damage, and I can tank any move from this. Even if it's a crunch, it will hurt a bit. It does end up debuffing me, which is sad, but Waterfall does a lot of damage, and so I am able to farm down, which is nice. They go in Chestnut, which is interesting because they know I have energy, and they know I have a Drill Pack, and so it's a little weird that they no-shielded a double super effective move. I don't know what they thought I had in the back, but I definitely didn't have it. And then Malamar, yes, they've baited out my Giratina and can foul play it, but they just wasted their Frenzy Plant for no reason, and I'm still able to get off some energy onto this Malamar. So a bit of a puzzling play out of my opponent. I'm not exactly sure what they were trying to do, but this, you know, puts me in a really nice position. I do get to another Dragon Claw, which is very nice. And at this point, they're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. I can just go into my Empoleon, snipe after throwing 1 fast move, and now they have to make a choice, let it go, or, you know, do they shield it up? And at this point, I know I have a shield to hide behind. I'm just going to win this game. So, GG's to my opponent, but Empoleon takes another W. So in this next game, we are going to run into one of the main reasons to run Waterfall. We have Talonflame. You can see that they stay in because they assume I'm on Metal Claw or Steel Wing, and that's perfectly fine because, you know, I get off a bunch of Waterfalls and I get off a Hydro Cannon on Licky Licky, which could be a big problem for my Giratina. They farm up to a Hyper Beam. I kind of had a feeling they would go for it, but it is what it is. I miscounted. I thought that they already had a Body Slam and I was trying to CMP them. That obviously didn't work out super well, but it is what it is. Goodra still does very well into Talonflame. And so I get another shield with my Aqua Tail. The main problem being that it farms me all the way down, which is a bit of a problem. They have Tentacruel, which Tentacruel doesn't do any fast move damage to Empoleon because Empoleon Steel type double resists the poison jabs, and if it basically can't do anything because its best move is Scald. Blizzard would be double resisted by Empoleon, so I don't really care if it throws Blizzard, and then Scald is resisted and Poison or Acid Spray is double resisted. So I know I'm in good shape here, and Talonflame can't do anything to a Giratina, so that's going to be another W right here. I just farm it all the way down because I know it has to throw a Brave Bird here, and that's going to be GG. All right. This next match, we've got a Lapras. Lapras is a bit tough for this team, but they immediately swap, and I immediately swap as well, because I was assuming that even if they have Ice Beam, I can get off some Thunder Punches on the Lapras, which would have been fine. This is a bit awkward because Goodra doesn't really do anything in terms of charge move damage to Superior. And so even though Superior is, you know, grass into dragon, you would assume that this is very, very favorable for Goodra. Without any, you know, hard-hitting move that's neutral, Goodra actually loses this matchup, and so it's a bit sad. The reason I went for Aqua Tail was I wanted to put a little bit of a time, you know, prevent them from just farming down and then using something like Aerial Ace to knock me out. Now, you know, it goes from bad to worse because they have a Primeape in the back, and, you know, at this point, I'm assuming they're not going to close combat. So they just go Rage Fist. I just immediately go into my Giratina because I'm assuming that they have to swap out if it's a Primeape. This is going to be really tough if they end up Ice Beaming me. So I'm going to shield. It is the Ice Beam. I do have super effective Ancient Powers, but at this point I know that it's going to be really, really tough to win this game. I shield the Ice Beam again, which honestly I think is a bit of a misplay. I think I should have just let that go and tried to take out the Primeape, which I think is a more pressing issue than anything else. So here I'm going to swap into Empoleon, try to catch, but honestly at this stage it doesn't really matter. I know that I've lost this game, and this ends up being the one that cost me my 13 game win streak. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure to drop a like, subscribe, all that sort of stuff. It's been your boy Watermelon, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.